Today we're gonna learn how to bypass pretty much every lock with the ultimate skeleton key. So, stay tuned. Alright, so picking locks with lockpicks is a super cool skill. That being said, it is a skill. It's a thing you need to practice intentionally to get the feeling right and to really hone in so you can make yourself good at it. But with the simple technique I'm gonna show you here today, you can open most locks you're gonna run into in your daily life with relative ease. Honestly, it's kinda scary. The tool I'm talking about is called a bump key, and it is the closest thing to a lockpicking cheat code that exists. Okay, but before we actually make this thing, let's go over exactly what we're trying to accomplish with it. So inside of a lock, there's an array of pins called tumblers that are being held down by springs. Now each one of those little tumblers there are actually cut in half, and where they're cut is called the shear line. Normally, the shear lines on all the pins don't match up with each other, which causes the lock to bind up on the pins and stops it from opening. What a key does is change the position of each pin so that the shear line matches, allowing the lock to turn. So the way a bump key gets around this mechanism is by quickly raking those pins while you're gently turning the lock in an attempt to bounce them into place. And once that shear line's in position, the lock will open. And these things are effective and honestly a little worryingly easy to make. For starters, you're gonna need a key that fits into the lock you're trying to open. Different locks have different styles, so your front door key isn't gonna fit into like a padlock. That being said, all of the locks work off the same kind of principle, so as long as you have the right key for that lock, you should be able to make this work. So in my case here, the key fits, but it's the wrong one, so the shear lines are off. For this to work, we're gonna have to alter this key. Specifically, all of these little dips and valleys here need to change. We basically want to find the lowest point they go to and adjust all of the rest of them to be down that low as well. Now to do this, I'm just using this basic triangle file, but I've seen people use round files, Dremels, anything that's going to get those little divots down lower will work. I simply secured my key into my vise and then filed each gap down to that line. Do be careful to file them down as straight as possible because you want to maintain the spacing that they're in. When done, your key should be left looking like a wee bebe saw for sawing wee bebe trees. Now at this point, you do have a bump key. It's going to work, but it's not going to be very efficient. Here's what I mean. To use it, you put it all the way into the lock and then back it out one click. Then applying a little turning pressure, tap it the rest of the way in with something. If it doesn't unlock, you need to reset it by pulling it out again, and then try hammering it back in again. Though it did work eventually, it took me a good amount of tries to get it done. Feeling out how much rotational pressure you have to put on the key to make the pins get stuck in the right position is really where the trick is. So by having to pull it out a little bit each time and reset it, I kind of lose the dialing in factor of what I was feeling already. To make this more efficient, we need to make that key reset itself automatically after every attempt. To do this, we first need to remove these little shoulders here that stop the key from going in any further. Again, this is done easily enough with my file. So next you're gonna need some material with a little bit of bounce to it. I read the best things are actually these little elastics that are used to castrate livestock. But rubber O-rings like these ones will work as well. All you gotta do is slide them onto that space on the key. My favorite so far is this little piece of spring that I had lying around. I just really liked how bouncy it was. It felt very responsive for me. But seriously, don't overthink this. You could just wrap a rubber band around there. Anything that's gonna make it bounce back out, that little like 1/8 of an inch will work. And as you can see, now the key will reset itself after every try. With this in place, I can now focus on the rotational pressure I'm putting on the key and easily open that lock. Seriously, this is scary easy to do. And honestly, check out any other video on this topic, like everybody agrees. This is scary easy to do. Feels so unsafe. Of course, we don't have to worry about any of you because you will only use this knowledge for good and lawful purposes. I'm looking at you. You know who you are. Now, all of these wonderful people right here are my Patreon members. If you do like what I do here and you want to support me, why don't you consider joining them by joining my Patreon down in the description below. Because Daddy needs more booze money. And if you don't, it's cool. It's not like I have a way to get into your home. Take what I need. Power. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, why don't you give me some of that like it love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. In the meantime, though, keep leveling up, you.